Welcome to Uncle's channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And today we focus on a game called Tail Gator for the original Game Boy. Now before this challenge, I'd never heard this game. I'd never played this game. However, the game is phenomenal. There's no doubt about it. It is a forgotten gem for the system. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time going through it, which is only like an hour and a half. So it ends a little bit quick on you. But it has great graphics, great music behind it. The gameplay is very solid and just has a great charm all throughout the entire experience. Now this particular game did get moved up on the queue a little bit because Brian Osendorf 2462 requested on my earlier videos to cover this game sooner than later. So naturally moved up in the queue. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of the game in the comments down below. And just like Tail Gator, I'll move it right on up. But let's go and get into the actual game. Now I always like to start the games off by looking at the box art for the game first. And the box art for Tail Gator, it's a doozy here for the US cover anyway. Because like this cover here, yes, it represents the game, but it is like the most out there 90s looking cover that I could ever imagine. It looks like those No Fear, I think was the company name, Trapper Keepers back from the 90s. I mean, this looks like it's directly out of that. Yes, you have the Tail Gator here, Charlie, right in the middle. He's wearing shoes just like he does in the actual game. And you have all the core like bad guys. You got like the giant dove you fight against. You got the pterodactyls you go up against. The knights, a giant fish that you fight off. A castle in the background. Like the cover is like legitimately everything in this game is put in the cover. But like the entire feel or like aesthetics of the game is like completely off here because it's like a cartoonish, charming, wacky game to a degree. And this looks like something, like I said, you see on those No Fear Trapper Keepers back from the 90s. And to me, they really missed the mark on the direction of the cover, even though it does say what's in the actual game. Personally, the Japanese cover for the game is way better than this as far as like capturing like the actual feel or the aesthetics of the game. And I'll put a picture of it right here. And you can see like it's a cartoony looking alligator. Charlie looks like he's having a great time journeying through the land here. The enemies are still off to the side. I just feel like it's a much better cover as far as like summarizing the game itself. But still, in the United States, we got a truly radical cover that departs from the game pretty radically as well. Now, when you start the actual game up here, you have a very basic tile screen except for the logo itself, and the logo is awesome looking. It has the words Tail Gator, but it's shaped like an actual alligator's body, has a little spines coming off of it. Whoever's in charge of the logo for this game, fantastic job. And then of course Charlie like slides in from the side. Let's watch that slide once again. There we go. A nice little slide in from Charlie. I mean, it's a little faster than Charlie moves throughout most of the game. But I don't know, it's an interesting little slide there. Now if you wait it out, the tile screen never does change and you never actually get any story or any background in the game at all. The game itself will just start. So I actually looked it up because I was curious, like what is the story behind the game? And it says the story here centers on the conflict arising from a dragon warlord known as Beso Gilla, who's teleported his castle and his armies to the peaceful animal kingdom known as Moberry in order to destroy it and establish its ultimate rule. The Council of the Elders of Moberry put Charlie, our alligator, on the task to send the invaders packing in order to ensure their well-deserved freedom. So there's like a full story here, like an evil warlord taking over the kingdom, and Charlie's been chosen to rescue the kingdom or push the evil warlord back. It'd be nice if some of this was said in the game, because if you don't know that, the game doesn't make like a heck of a lot of sense as far as like the levels that you're going through. But now when you start the actual game up here, Charlie looks sort of like a reluctant, grumpy old man marching across the screen. Looks like he's been woken up from a prolonged nap, and he's not too happy about his journey. But I don't know, that's the vision that I'm getting at least from Charlie walking across the screen here. And then you go into Area 1. Now areas 1, 2, and 3 are all going to have like a select your stage type mechanic. There are 4 levels that Charlie can go into. The top level, the second to top level, the third level, and then the bottom level. And each of these is going to have its own like aesthetic and its own bad guys, and to some degree its own little puzzles to figure out as well. But I like the idea that you can actually sort of choose like which level you want to go into. Sort of like a Mega Man select your own stage type of mechanic here. But I do choose the second to top stage, and I go ahead and head into this one. And every single stage you go into is going to have the exact same mechanic as far as there are all these little treasure chests displayed across the stage, and your goal here is to open up every single one of the treasure chests, and whichever one you open up last is going to have a key, and you can use that key to exit out of that particular room. All of the other treasure chests are going to have things like extra hearts, you know, to refill your life, or maybe like bonus points, or like power-ups to basically charge your tail up to be a little bit more powerful, and then finally be able to like shoot a little beam out from your tail, as well as the ability to have like a little bomb which just simply clears off the entire screen. So there's a lot of power-ups throughout all the chests, and as far as I can tell, they're all random every single time. except for the last one, which will always house the key. So it doesn't matter what order you go in, whichever one you open last is the key to exit out of the room. So you have to open up all of the chests. Now you have some basic moves as Charlie here. You can of course jump, and you can also sort of do a little tail whip to knock enemies back. And like I said earlier, the more power-ups you get inside the chest, the more powerful your little tail whip is going to be here, and it takes fewer and fewer hits to actually kill the enemies the more powerful you are. Now none of the levels in this first stage here are going to be too overly complex. There's not a ton of chests you have to open either, and the enemies themselves are going to be like these little natives you're fighting up against. Honestly, it's a very basic level, but at the same time you are just starting the game and you're learning the basics of like how this game is even played, so that does make sense as an overall. But after you finished up like 3 or 4 levels here in the second tier of Area 1, you come back to the tier select screen, and so now you can choose from the top tier or one of the 2 bottom tiers, because the one you just finished is now sealed up since you've actually completed that. And so now I go into the top tier, and as expected, they actually changed a lot of the aesthetics here. Now you're fighting like up in the sky. You have like these little clouds you hop on one to another, and the clouds, if you stay on one too long, they are going to sort of make you fall through them, just like you do in like the Yoshi story game, or like in Super Smash Brothers on the Yoshi level. You stay on the cloud too long, it disappears and you fall through it. The cloud doesn't disappear, but you still you fall through the cloud here. There's also some puzzles as far as like little wind gusts that sort of knock you up in the air, and they're going to get much more prevalent as further you go into the game. But as far as enemies go, mostly the same enemies, in addition to a few birds that are going to fly back and forth and try to hit you. But like I said, you're still learning the basics of the game, and you go through about 3 or 4 levels here in the top tier or the cloud tier of Area 1, and you go back to the main screen here to choose one of the bottom 2 tiers to finish up level 1. Now the next tier I go to is going to be the third from the top, and this one's going to be more like a cave aesthetic here. You can have like lizards come after you, and like snakes are going to come after you, and like little mini volcanoes that are shooting up, as well as like stalactites that are dropping down. And so a pretty good little aesthetic here. For the most part, the puzzles are still going to be pretty basic. You know, the treasure chests are easy to get to, easy to open. Nothing too complex here, but you do get your first boss of the game here in the cave tier of Area 1. It's going to be a giant frog, and the giant frog essentially just shoots out like a little bubble out, and it sort of divides up and comes at you. Pretty easy to dodge, and then he just simply jumps from one area of the screen all the way to the other far side of it, and you can just simply run underneath him and take him out pretty darn quick. All the bosses are pretty easy in this game, and the frog is no exception here. But I actually really enjoyed the animation of the frog. And just speaking of the animation in general, like all the animation in the game is pretty top notch. I mean, the little boots that Charlie wears, little extra, character to Charlie. The backgrounds of the levels are nice. The foregrounds, the enemy sprites, everything is very clear. The game just has a really good look about it, and the frog is of no exception. Now the next tier we're going to go into is the very bottom tier for Area 1, and it's going to be an underwater level. And of course, being an alligator, you know how to swim pretty well, and the water mechanics are actually really well done here. Like, you don't press A, repeatedly as fast as you can, to try to swim up. You just simply use your D-pad, and if you press up, Charlie begins to go up. You press down, Charlie goes down, left, right, same thing. The swimming is like really well done in this game. And of course, you can still use your tail whip to open the treasure chest or knock enemies back. And speaking of enemies, of course, you're going to have, your typical stuff like seahorses and fish and snakes and jellyfish. I mean, the typical underwater enemies for most any of these platforming games. But like I said, the underwater mechanics here are very well done. The graphics behind it are very well done, and an overall enjoyable level. I don't really understand like how they chose like when to give you your boss. I guess it's like automatically every time the cave area is going to have the frog as the boss. But it seems to me like whichever tier you finish last, that should be when the boss comes up. But I don't know, just a small, minuscule complaint against a overall classic of a game here. But we have now finished up Area 1. You get a little password system. You can move on into Area 2 now. And Area 2 is structured exactly the same way. You have 4 tiers of levels you can go through. Top tier is going to be your sky world. The second from top tier is going to be like a land world. Third tier is going to be a cave world, and the bottom tier will be underwater yet again. And they don't change like a whole lot of things, but we'll sort of go through them one at a time. This time I start with the top world, which is going to be the sky world. And there are a few new birds you're going to fight up against, trying to make the game a little bit more hectic, make it a little more difficult here. There are also way more wind tunnels that you can sort of have to hop into, solve some of the puzzles that way. But the overall gameplay of it is still going to be open up chest, get to the last one, get the key, and escape out the level. And there is no boss in the sky world tier. Now next you're going to go into the second to top tier, which is going to be like the land tier. And for this one they have introduced a really fun enemy. It's not a boss, just simply an enemy in the game here. It's going to be what I assume is a red panda. I don't know it for a fact, but to me it looks like a red panda inside the game. There's little hopping mechanics, the way it looks as an overall. I searched high and low for a manual for this game to try to figure out like what the enemies are inside the game. I couldn't find one anywhere. If you can give me a link to a manual, I'd be happy to look at it and correct this here. But to me, looks like a red panda. You also got these fire plants, like piranha plants, that are sort of shooting a little fireball out at you. You also have these little ducks that are floating on the water, and also a fish is introduced into this level that's never in any of the water levels. This would be like the sunfish, you know, like the giant ones that sort of, you know, look like they're sort of flat like a pancake. Sort of a 2D looking fish inside the ocean. It's inside the game here, a nice little sunfish. So there's like a ton of new enemies inside the land level here. I don't think any of the older enemies are even repeated inside this time. But as far as like the puzzles go, like I said, same puzzles, but it's a fun gameplay mechanic of finding and opening all of these chests up. Now, once you finish up that tier, you go back to the main little tier selection here. I go ahead and head on into the cave one here, and once again, they mix the enemies up pretty darn well. You got a little floppy fish this time around. I don't really know what it's called, but it looks like a little floppy fish. You also have these little pterodactyls. You're going to like shoot out little fireballs at you as well. And there's a lot of like little water currents that, of course, mix the puzzles up a little bit. You have to plan your route around the level a little bit better, trying to open all of these chests up. Now, the fourth tier we're going to go into is, once again, the underwater tier. And this is going to be way more seaweed oriented and way more platforming and puzzle elements than the first time around. But at the same time, since the underwater levels handle so well, you don't really mind upping the difficulty a little bit. Now, the boss inside the area 2 is going to be hidden inside the water level here. It's going to be a giant fish that essentially shoots out like a bubble and then divides into 3 bubbles and comes and tries to hit you. But this is actually pretty easy because you get the power up to actually shoot out like a little projectile at the fish as well. And so you can sort of stand back, you know, dodge the little bubbles that are coming at you pretty easily. And you can actually destroy the bubble as well if you just simply shoot the bubbles. And so the fish is taken out in pretty much no time. Now, area 3 you're going to go into is going to have the same choose your tier mechanic like Mega Man. However, this is a significantly harder area than levels 1 and 2. Area 3 is going to introduce a much larger area for you to explore through, and every single time searching for the little chest. And there's also way more chests that you have to open up, and there's also a heck of a lot more enemies who are going to be trying to come at you and attack you at the same time. I start off once again up in the cloud area, and the enemies for the most part are going to repeat, but there's just simply more of them. And also, like, they have one really obnoxious level here. It's like in a Mega Man with like those little disappearing blocks. I know I've compared this a lot to Mega Man, but this is actually a very different game from Mega Man. It just shares a few, very distinctive mechanics here. But it's like the little disappearing bricks in Mega Man. You have to hop on them before it disappears, hop to another one. You're going to have like little miniature bricks that you have to hop on, and then of course it's going to disappear. So you have to hop onto another brick and hop onto another one before it disappears, and so forth and so on. And there's a few clouds you can jump on as well. But just like I said earlier in the video, the clouds are also going to fall through, so you can't like hang out on them waiting to figure out like the brick pattern. Overall, the sky level here is definitely the hardest sky level throughout the entire game. And you also get a boss in this particular one, which is going to be a giant dove. And the giant dove is actually pretty tough here. He shoots out 3 little projectiles and sort of tracks you to shoot out another little 3 if you move after the first one. And every now and then he's going to like sort of bash into the wall trying to hit you, and then shoots out like a giant like force-filled blast at you. The dove is actually a fairly challenging little boss here. It might actually take you a few tries to actually get the mechanics down and actually take the dove out. Then you head back to the hub area of Area 3. You can select another tier. I'm going to select the land tier next. And the land tier, for the most part, can be sort of the same idea. Just simply larger level to explore, more chests to open. No really new enemies here, but you are going to get another boss here. So it's 2 bosses in Area 3 already. It's going to be a giant otter. And the otter is basically sort of lays on its back and shoots out these little balls up in the air, and they sort of come down and try to hit you. It's like 3 of them in a row, or 3 sets in a row. It's fairly hard to avoid. If you go in there with enough health, you can sort of just hop off to the side and just press the button as fast as you can, shoot out projectiles as quick as you possibly can, and you can have the otter taken out faster, and he can destroy you if you have like full health here. And so that's the pattern that I went on. But the otter, a great sprite and a fun boss overall. Now we have 2 tiers left in Area 3. I head into the cave tier, and for the most part, the cave tier, there's nothing really to write home about. Just simply, once again, a larger area to explore, more treasure chests to open up, no boss at the close of the cave tier, and then we head into the water tier. And the water tier is probably one of the most annoying levels inside the entire game at this point. Like I said earlier, the mechanics are great, the controlling is great, but you go into this one area, it's like a giant maze almost, and so you have to go pretty much in one particular path in order to open up all the different treasure chests. And it's actually sort of hard to see like where the gap is large enough for a little gator to actually fit through, and so you're going to miss it a few times. And so like you're just continually killing the enemies that continue to respawn, trying to figure out like where I can squeeze through some of these rocks to actually get to the treasure chest. An annoying level as an overall. And overall, the water tier for this particular area was the worst water tier inside the entire game. but at the same time, there is no boss, so they're not going to punish us too much for this water tier. But now we finished up Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, and we can head into Area 4, which is going to be a little bit different from the rest of the game because you can't actually choose like which tier you want to go into. There's only one specific passageway that you can take. Now, this particular area is not going to be a normal little area. There's actually the castle of Basogilla, who's the main dictator who's trying to take over your land here of the land of Moberry. Don't want to forget the name of your land. But you're basically heading into Basogilla's castle in order to finally take him or her out. And so journeying through here is probably one of the best looking levels inside the entire game. Like, I really enjoy like the castle aesthetic, and the enemies inside the castle are some of the most fun enemies as well. You have like little knights that are going to try to fight you. You have little mages who have like the little robes on, shooting out like little magic spells at you as well. You have little ET looking monsters or little creatures that are coming at you. I actually don't know what these creatures are. Remind me of something that you see like the first TMNT game on the NES, but a weird looking little creature. But overall, these levels here, like, there's just enough puzzle to them, there's just enough length to them, and the fun factor is at an all-time high going through these two parts of Area 4. But after you've gone through both these parts of Area 4, which is like 7 or 8 little miniature levels to find the treasure chest, you're finally going to the final boss in the game, who is going to be the Basogilla. And Basogilla looks like the frog sprite from earlier, mixed with a dragon, almost like if they had a baby of some sorts. A really interesting looking sprite, not anything like any other monster I've seen inside of a game, mainly because of the little eyes up top. But a very, very easy boss, because I realized I was like completely full on health here, and I just simply went into a similar mode as against the otter, where I simply got pretty close and just started firing away endlessly, because I figured my health could outlast Basogilla's health, and sure enough, that was the case. And after you finish the final boss off here, you walk out of the castle, you hop on a little cloud here, and you've defeated the final boss. You simply float back down to the ground. The credits are rolling as you go. You get all the way down to the ground, and then Charlie the Gator journeys back into his little house here, his little hut, and he can live in peace once again, knowing that his land is safe. There's no great ceremony for him, no one coming up to thank him or anything like that. Reminds me like Shrek going back to his little cabin, just wants to be left alone. That's what I think about Charlie here. Charlie the Gator just simply wants to be left alone. Sort of like back to the opening scene. He's sort of grumpily and begrudgingly going to fight this battle. Now he's like, fine, I did it. Just get out of the way and let me go back to bed here. But overall, this is a really fun game. The gameplay itself is a top-notch experience as far as like trying to open up all the treasure chests, figuring out like which direction or which path is the best to go on in order to minimize getting hit along your journey to open up all of these chests, getting the different power-ups, giving the little bomb to clear out the entire screen. There's just a lot of fun variety to such a simple seeming game here. And that's something I really do enjoy, like with these old Game Boy games, is finding one that's not overly complex. It's just simply a fun, sit down, maybe like an hour, hour and a half experience, and just a really solid, fun time. And that's exactly what Gator Tail is here. But on top of that, like, it's a charming game as well. So it's not just like a fun, simple arcade game. It's a charming game. Like, I love the character of Charlie here, the graphics as you're going through it. Fun little graphics, the bosses themselves, great sprites, great animation, and the music. The music throughout is a classic soundtrack, pretty much start to finish. There was never a single song in this game where I was like, not my type of song here. Every song, a top-notch track. So Gator Tail, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because like I just really had a fun time playing through it. Like I said, it was the exact length that I wanted inside the game. The soundtrack was catchy, the graphics were really enjoyable, and also I read afterwards, if you want to like replay the game on a second time, or even I guess your first time through if you know where to look, there's like secret exits to some of these levels, so there's like different paths that you can take, so a little bit of replayability as well. Overall, I feel like this game here like encapsulates exactly what a Game Boy game should be, and just a really classic and fun experience. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend giving Tail Gator a try. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, check my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.